Here we're going to be talking about how to find interest using a specific formula. So this is just talking about simple interest, where you have an original amount, that's going to be called the principal, an interest rate, that's going to be a percent, and a time that interest is being gained over. So interest is really what you owe for borrowing money. Sometimes you're actually going to gain interest. If you are putting money into the bank, they're actually giving you money so that they have your money. They're giving you a little bit extra so they can use your money for whatever they want to use that money for. It's money that is paid for borrowing money. In the formula, I equals PRT. I stands for the interest. We're going to multiply P times R times T, and that's going to give us our I, that's going to give us the interest. For the original amount, the principal, the rate, and that time. The interest is money owed. For borrowing. The principal, which is the P here, is the original amount. It could be the original amount that's invested. It could be the original amount on your credit card. It's just the starting amount that interest is being gained on. The interest rate, which is the R here, is a percent, and that's how quickly money is being owed. It's basically how much money you're going to owe. But that's also impacted by the original amount, the principal, and the time, the length of the loan. Let's say the length of the borrowing. It's not always a loan, but I am going to call it a loan a lot of the time. It's the length of the borrowing, how long you're borrowing that money for. Two really specific things about this formula. You cannot use a percent, and you cannot use a time in months. It has to be in terms of years. So we need to use a decimal, and we need to use the time in terms of years. We're going to change all of these percents into decimals by dividing them by 100. That's 0.11. 7 divided by 100 is 0.07. 4.5% as a decimal is 0.045, and 0.9% as a decimal is 0.009%. You can either think of it as dividing by 100, or you move the decimal place back 2 spots. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. You move it back 2 spots. So you need to use that as a decimal before you start using the formula at all. And it's always going to be given as a percent. It's going to say it's an 11% interest rate. You can't use 11%. You have to use 0.11. Then we need to make sure that our time is in terms of years. If they tell you years, it's real simple. You just use that number. It's just 5. If it's in terms of months, you have to think about how many years that is. Well, there's 12 months in 1 year. So you divide that by 12. 24 months is 2 years. It's the exact same thing for each of these. You divide each of these by 12. It tells you how much of a year it is. 6 over 12 is the same thing as 1/2 or 0.5. It's half of a year, so you use 0.5. 9 out of 12 is 3/4 or 0.75 of a year. 18 months is a year and then a little bit extra. It's actually a year and a half. It's a year and 6 months. So that's 1.5 years. You have to use years and you have to use decimals. You're not allowed to use percentages and you're not allowed to use months. It has to be in terms of years. All right, now we're actually going to try this. We're going to take, you're always going to be given these 3 numbers, the principal, the rate, and the time. You just have to decide how to use them. We're looking for what is the interest. That's the question there. What is the interest We don't know that yet, but we know the principal. If $1,800 was invested at 6.5% for 2 years, 1,800 is our principal. That's our starting amount. Our rate, I'm going to change that into a decimal right away. I'm going to divide that by 100, and that's 0.065. And the 2 years, I don't have to change that at all. That's already in terms of years. I'm just going to use 2. Once you have the information that you need, the principal, the rate as a decimal, and the time as a year, you just multiply them together. I equals P R T. It's 1,800 times 0.065 times 2. That's going to tell me the interest. When you multiply those together, you get 234. And that's really it. That is the interest that we're earning there. And that's a dollar amount. It's $234 that was earned on what was originally $1,800. Number 2 saying you saved $70,065 for 3 months at a 10% interest rate. How much interest would you earn? Again, we don't know the interest. How much interest? But the original amount is $70,065. That's always going to be a dollar amount. The rate as a decimal here is 0.10. That's always going to be a percent. You have to change it into a decimal. And in this one, they're telling us it's 3 months. We're not using 3. We're using 3 months in terms of years. 3 divided by 12. It's 1/4 of a year, or 0.25. So now we're going to plug those 3 numbers in. P times R times T. I equals P times R times the time, which is T, or 0.25. And now we get to multiply those together. And that gives us 1,751.625. I'm going to round that to the nearest penny. I'm talking about money, so I want to talk about that in terms of cents. 63 cents. Whenever we're talking about money, you're going to round to the nearest hundredths place. So that 5 really rounds the 2 up into a 3 and makes it 63 cents. All right, I want you to try these 2, doing exactly what we just did. It's looking for the amount of interest, how much interest. You have to figure out the amount of interest using exactly what we just did. The next couple are really simple. It's the exact same thing. We have to find the interest. There's just one additional step. We're still going to find the interest, but there's one more step. We are going to add that interest to the principal. We're looking for the total amount. Interest, just like tax or tip or markup, it gets added in when we're looking for a total. It's similar first steps. Glenn invested $6,000. That's our principal. For 6 years. That's our time at an interest rate of 0.05%. Changing that into a decimal. It's 0.005 as a decimal. How much would Glenn have to give the bank back after 5 years? Sorry, how much would he have in the bank after 5 years? So he originally invested this amount. He's going to gain a little bit of money. He starts out with $6,000. He's going to gain some interest. We're going to multiply those together. I equals P times R times T. So I equals 6,000 times 0.005 times 6. And that tells us that he's making $180. That is not what the question's asking. That's part of it. how much would he have in the bank? He's going to have the $6,000 still. He doesn't just have 180. The 180 is the amount that he gains, so he has now $6,180. He starts out with 6,000. He has to have more than that in the bank if he's making some in interest. Number 2, Dean invested $850. Starts out with $850. For 3 months, 3 out of 12 is 0.025. We need that in years. At a 5% interest rate, 0.05. How much would Dean have total in the bank after the 3 months? So again, the I equals 850 times 0.05 times 0.25. That's going to tell us how much he actually is gaining from interest. That's $10.63. Again, we're rounding to the hundredths place. And then we add that to the 850. Because it's 860 with 63 cents left over in change. He has the 850. Now he's gaining a certain amount in interest, so we put those two together. That's exactly what is being shown here. The interest was 180, the principal was 6,000. We put those together for our total.